Well, greetings to you all and happy Earth Day. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here today to have the chance to talk with you about Plymouth State University and our efforts to be more sustainable and more resilient. It is my pleasure today to be joined by Reed Silvers, a student here at Plymouth State University. Reed, if you'd like to tell us maybe a little bit about your major.
Hi, everybody. I'm Reed. I'm a sophomore environmental planning major here at Plymouth State, and I'm from Portland, Maine.
Great. And as I shared, my name is Brian Eisenhower, and I've been here at Plymouth State for 17 years, and it's been a pleasure to have the opportunity to work with our faculty, staff, students, and all of our community that is interested in these issues to try and improve our relationship with the environment. So what we have planned for today is about 35 minutes of information about what we've done at Plymouth State, including our goals, our efforts to date, and some of the things we're most proud of. And of course, throughout the presentation, we'll do our best to acknowledge the students and staff and others who have contributed so much to what we've achieved so far. At the end of our time, we will have a session for questions, and we'll do our best to answer. And throughout the presentation today, I'll be asking Reed to chime in both at any time to add his 2 cents worth to what I'm sharing, and also in particular to share the student perspective, if you will, on a few issues. I'm happy to say, a lot of information to cover, so we'll probably move quickly. And if it seems like we won't move quickly enough, I will conclude in time to ensure we have some questions. To ask questions, you can just put them in the chat. And so you can actually put them in there as you think of them, and we'll be happy to review them at the end of the session when we take questions, or you can save them for then. So thanks again to Reed for joining us, and thanks to all of you for taking the time as well. And I'd like to share with you some of what we've done at Plymouth State to create a more sustainable university. So the core, the foundation of how we pursue sustainability at Plymouth State is in recognition of the critical importance of climate change, in recognition of its human causes, and of the importance in addressing it for social well-being as well as environmental well-being. And as a university, we ground our efforts in our responsibility and desire to train the next generation of citizens and leaders. We take a broad approach, trying to think holistically about sustainability and resilience, and improve our community's relationship with the environment in a wide variety of ways. And specifically in terms of climate change, we have specific goals to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, a 50% reduction from our baseline by 2025, and a full 100% reduction from our baseline by 2050. These are lofty goals, particularly in times that are lean and funding is challenged in higher education. And so we continue to seek innovative and cost-effective, as well as responsible ways to try and meet these goals. When we began this journey, our administration was one of the early signatories on international commitments in the role of higher education in climate change and addressing it. And from a group called the American College and University President's Climate Commitment, which transitioned into an organization called Second Nature, we signed on for the aforementioned goals for sustainability and made specific commitments to be leaders in these efforts in our communities and also in the field of higher ed. We committed to specific first steps that guide some of our policies and the way we work here at Plymouth State. We also committed to doing inventories of our greenhouse gas emissions so that we can track our progress towards achieving these goals. And we were tasked with developing a climate action plan. How are we going to address our climate change goals in reducing greenhouse gas emissions? And how are we going to integrate our educational efforts into that as well? And much of what we do at Plymouth State is very, very important, we note, in terms of that role of higher ed. But it's at this point that I was hoping Reed might have an opportunity to share his thoughts on some of the ways sustainability is relevant to students.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, at Plymouth State, I think, we're a lot of the students, are very, all about sustainability. And seen through a lot of the environmental student clubs. So the two active ones right now are the Geography and Environmental Planning Club and the Common Ground Club, which they've been very active this week throughout Earth Week, doing a lot of activities. Very big trash pickup yesterday, environmentally themed Zoom trivia on Monday night. So they've been very active. They have a big presence there with those clubs. And yeah, it's just, I think we all really appreciate the commitments that the school is making, and the school is proving that it's not just hollow statements. They're making up for it with action with our new solar array on the PE center. It's pretty cool. We have 3 different types of renewables between the biomass plant, the geothermal that powers the ice rink, and then of course the new solar array on the PE center, which is pretty cool. I know the students, we all appreciate that very much, and I think it's a great goal to get carbon neutrality by 2050, and they're definitely making concrete steps to achieve that. So yeah, I feel very proud.
Thanks. Thank you much, Reed. And obviously, Reed and I know each other well. I can honestly share that if our memory serves, we met each other on your admissions visit to Plymouth State. And so it is important to note Reed's and I connect in part because he has a passion for these issues. And we certainly recognized when we think of our students at Plymouth State, we know there's a range of concern about climate change and views on it. But we know it is important to the future, and it's something that really represents the values of our community in thinking about preparing the next generation. So whether they're folks who are as passionate as Reed is, and we benefit from that greatly here in the Office of Environmental Sustainability, or if it's just people who appreciate the sense of social and environmental responsibility, I think what Reed shared summarizes well the way we hope that what we do really connects with students and what they want to see at Plymouth State University. So when we think about trying to meet these goals, the initiative from students can't be overstated. And as one example, a number of years ago, the university, Plymouth State University, became the first university in the nation to join the Climate Realities Project 100% Committed campaign, which pledged that by 2030, Plymouth State would get 100% of its electricity from renewable sources. And as was stated in a Plymouth State magazine at the time, by the provost, President Burks acknowledges that this is an incredibly lofty undertaking, that the path forward isn't clear, but that it's by setting these goals that we can then strive to achieve them. And we have high hopes that we will. In addition, as our university is really trying to take value in interdisciplinary perspectives and reorganizing our curriculum around the idea of clusters that foster interdisciplinarity, the connections between sustainability and so many fields, be they communication, finance, engineering, and many others, it embodies the kind of work that we're hoping to prepare students to do. And without them leading the way in this kind of a manner, we wouldn't have the level of commitment we have. And so both the university administration and the Climate Realities Project themselves, and I should mention this organization and this commitment has been joined by hundreds, if not thousands of universities since then, really set the tone and the path forward for what we're trying to do. And in this case, I think it's particularly of note that over 1,500 students, which is over a third of our undergraduate population, even endorsed this campaign and signed on to this student-led petition. So not only is it important in demonstrating their views and values, it is absolutely impressive leadership that we love to see from students, helping us determine our path forward as a community. So through the combination of administrative commitments and being clearer about the importance of these issues, we've pledged to these targets overall, as I mentioned, the 50% reduction and the 100% reductions from both carbon footprint overall and our sources of electricity. As a quick, very quick introduction to those who are not familiar. When we talk about impacts on climate change, it is usually the case that we refer to carbon footprints. Carbon footprints are a measure of the amount of greenhouse gases that a particular organization emits. It might be a country, might be a school, might be a company. And when we measure this, there's lots of things that factor into carbon footprints. It's not all just how much carbon dioxide goes into the air. It's also other pollutants, and it's the impact of the production of things that we use as part of our business, like paper and all the resources. So we often measure carbon footprints by dividing them into scopes. They are first the direct. You can think of as anything that the university owns that has an engine. Could be everything from a car all the way up to the heating plant, if you will. Scope 2 is the electricity that is purchased. So we don't produce it, but we buy it to run campus. And then scope 3 is kind of the catch-all for all those other resources, everything from fertilizer to paper and all that. And we try and understand the carbon footprint that that produces, as it's an overall part of our operations and part of what we should be dealing with. So once we established goals and really thought about what we wanted to achieve, our task was to determine how to get there. And our efforts to date are diverse, and I'll do my best to share a lot of them today, but I'm happy to say we have too much to talk about in limited time. But our efforts include first, in no chronological order, but I say first because one of our early forays in renewable energy was a solar array on top of Hyde Hall, which has been there for 6 years now. It has operated well and has saved the university in its operation. It's some of the cheapest electricity we purchased for campus last year. And by doing this kind of a, if you will, pilot test, it's the groundwork that enables us to have the assurance that we can move forward with larger, more ambitious projects. As a university and a public institution that values the cost of education, we need to make sure that what we do is cost effective and effective in providing the services that students need. So pilot projects like this really can be powerful for providing a path forward. When we deal with our physical buildings on campus, such as Merrill Place, the most recent residence hall construction on campus, we follow the guidelines of LEED, Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design. And that's a rating system that's one of the leading in the world for understanding the sustainability of buildings. And it actually uses a scoring system dependent on different attributes of the building to determine how sustainable a building is. It works on a sort of Olympic medals rating system. And when we built Merrill Place, we actually achieved gold standard in that design, which speaks to some of the features. And there are lots of factors that go into LEED certifications, but just as some examples, in the rooms in Merrill Place, there's valence units for heating that circulate air with a buoyancy effect, a heat differential effect, so there's no fan power. There's a window switch so that the temperature controls are affected when people open the windows. Of course, we look for efficient lighting and energy conservation throughout our efforts, low flow plumbing fixtures, and a host of other things to try and help residents minimize energy use in the building and make it easy to do so. In addition, the construction of the building and other things are factored into LEED ratings as well. Similarly, the field house, Allwell North, is a fairly recent construction project that features LED lighting and stormwater management. The parking underneath the field house is actually some buffer against flood protection. There's natural lighting in the building design and a host of other features as well. But one of the ones that illustrates our commitment to renewable energy and our interest in supporting the state economy is the use of biomass heat in the field house. We have in the field house a biomass boiler that uses wood pellets. The wood pellets are grown here in New Hampshire, processed here in New Hampshire from a certified sustainable source. And we are happy to say that as part of our energy portfolio, it's really been a financially sound investment, as the cost of wood pellets has remained amazingly consistent for a high number of years, over 5 years. And so as we look at our portfolio and where we spend our energy money, it's a great example of how we can work to be more sustainable, think bioregionally, and also support our economy. Also at the Holderness campus, we have an ice arena, and the ice arena has a geothermal heating and cooling system that both helps create the ice in the arena and helps heat the building as well. There are lots of other features, but these recent construction projects demonstrate some of the ways that Plymouth State enacts its commitment to sustainability through its capital projects. Being a New England campus, we have lots of history and lots of history in the buildings on our campus on their use. And so behind the scenes, the less noticeable types of projects are the hard work done by physical plant to deal with campus infrastructure, upgrading old systems, improving heating systems. And one big example is the work done to replace all the steam pipes on campus, which greatly reduced our steam use, improved the efficiency of the system. And it was an incredibly costly project, but indicative of some of the challenges that come with working on sustainability in New England and many other environments where we're working with infrastructure of various ages. We have lots of programs on campus. We're always trying to reach out to our campus community and encourage their participation in events and in raising awareness and these kinds of things. So after talking about the campus infrastructure, which is really needs to be recognized, is the hard work and the dedication of physical plant, those people who make our campus run behind the scenes. They're really dedicated to sustainability and do the hard work of making it happen. In addition, the administration and the finance team are also some of the people who are behind the scenes and have incredibly important roles in these things. So we're always trying to raise awareness and reach out about these kinds of engagements. For example, recently on campus, as you can tell by the snow picture, we installed an electric vehicle charging station on the campus. It is down by physical plant. And I wanted to highlight this as a very recent example of some of the good work that we're able to do. We have great partners with our electricity provider, the New Hampshire Electric Co-op, and a physical plant staff that is, again, interested in working on these issues and committed to doing the right things by our students. And so sometimes through hard work, these kinds of projects happen. And fortunately for many of us, we just get to see the end results. But these are elements, I just wanted to cite this as an example of the kinds of small things that are always ongoing here at Plymouth. I think the most exciting recent project we've had is the PE solar project on our gym down at the Holderness campus. And as with all our renewable energy projects, it's really the result of years of research and planning. We covered all the available roof space, allowing for appropriate safety measures and things. And just last month, the array covered more than 90% of the last month was 90% of the production the energy consumption, excuse me, of the PE Center. And that is above expectations. We had nice weather, but our hopes is that it would power that much for the entire year. So we look forward to seeing what the summer brings. To chart our path forward, we worked in 2013 with a consultant named Greener U to develop an actual climate action implementation plan. And when I say actual, it is quite easy for organizations to set lofty goals and say we're going to get there. Many fewer of them take the time to actually lay a path forward with specific projects. And that's exactly what happened in our work with Greener U. It brought together, again, administration, fiscal plant, and others to try and give specific steps forward. And this PE solar array is in line with that. It's expected to save us, and this is really the nice part, one of the nice parts, I should say, but it feels good to be able to say that not only are we doing the right thing, this should save the university money. Our expectation that figure is $100,000 in this first year. And this should reduce our annual carbon emissions by close to 500 tons. So it is a small part of the big picture, but an exciting example of the kinds of work that we're doing. And when we do these kinds of projects, again, I want to note the really important roles of fiscal plant finance, as well as our administrative support. But we have to do all kinds of back work with the site assessments, looking at the solar exposure, looking at the structural loading. Can the roof actually support all this equipment safely? The electrical connections, and a host of other issues, including intensive financial forecasting. And it's really a pleasure to be part of our energy committee, which involves people from finance, physical plant, and myself, and to be involved directly in some of the financial forecasting and talking about these capital projects. It's only through due diligence that we have the confidence we can make these investments and take these steps so soundly. So I alluded to it already. I guess I couldn't wait, but there are many people to acknowledge in the solar array. I would, for those who are interested in details, I won't dive too deep, but we actually purchased the array outright when we had it done. We, in other cases, could develop power purchase agreements, which are where we don't actually buy the capital. We just agree to buy the power from a specific provider. So we look at all these kinds of details when figuring out what to do with projects. And as I shared, the results to date are not only exciting to look at, quite frankly, one of the hard parts of my job is that no one even notices when these things go up unless they're viewing today. But it's really exciting to see the kinds of changes that take place when so many years of work and so many people's efforts results in this kind of path forward. So I've shared with you a number of the types of things that we've done on campus, and these are just examples, but certainly some of our most highlighted examples, if you will, of the kinds of things we've done on campus. And at this point, I just wanted to ask Reed to share with us his thoughts about the general sense of awareness of what Plymouth State has done and is doing.
Yeah, well, actually, the only reason that I've heard of the solar array really was because I've heard this slide from Brian here in my sustainability class with him. But in that class, when we learned about all these projects, the solar on top of Hyde, and the biomass and the geothermal, none of us even knew about that. I think this solar array on the PE Center, because it's new and it's being publicized, there's more awareness about that. But the students in our, even in a sustainability class, so these are students who are interested in this type of stuff. And, we still even, hadn't heard about it until Brian told us in class. So I think that's something we can do moving forward is, getting more awareness out there to the students.
Thanks, Reed. And that's one of those places where I think that it's clear we love and need all the student help we can get. And I asked Reed and I discussed that before a little bit, that particular question. And it's one that we have discussed in class, both Reed and I in our class experiences, but with many students and with members of the campus community. One of the challenges of being at an organization like Plymouth State is that we're fortunate to have a lot of good people doing a lot of good work. But sometimes the consequence of that is we all get overwhelmed with news. So I just want to take a moment for thanking all of you to take your time to join us today and learn a little bit more, and suggest that the most important thing people can do is reach out to the Office of Sustainability. PR can always get a hold of us, but if you have questions, we are more than happy to answer them. The more we can communicate about what we're doing with people like Reed and many others, the better off we're going to be. So to transition from that thought about raising awareness, I wanted to let you know a little bit about how energy works at Plymouth State. I acknowledge that I, like most of us, before it was my job, couldn't really have told you where exactly our energy comes from Plymouth State or how much it costs, certainly, and all those kinds of things. So to give you an idea, we have this energy group that I mentioned. Not only do we deal with capital projects that relate to energy, but we also are purchasing electricity, or advising decisions on purchasing energy at the university. And so we get our electricity from the New Hampshire Electric Co-op, who absolutely deserves recognition as a great partner with the university over the years. We have our solar, which we hope to continue to grow, although our roof space is extremely limited moving forward. So we have some challenges. For heat, for those who are not aware, most of our campus is heated by a central heating plant that is across from the Langdon Woods Residence Hall. We use compressed natural gas as the primary fuel in that plant with an oil backup. It produces steam, which is then piped across campus, and it connected in a loop, and that loop is connected to most of the large buildings on campus. As I mentioned, we have wood pellets in the field house. We do have propane and small oil-based heating units scattered throughout campus. Again, that reflects some of that history of a New England campus. Not everything is connected to the central system. So it ends up being quite a complex picture. And lastly, we could go on with many details, but including waste and recycling. But as far as energy, water, and sewer is probably the other big picture. I wanted to make a point to share with you today what our usage looks like. So this is a chart of our campus electrical usage annually over about 10-year period. And you can see a general trend that our usage is consistent with a slight upward trend. What I draw your attention to is that black summary line, the line in the middle, which is actually our average kilowatts per gross square footage. So what that can tell you is that we are using energy much more efficiently, but we're still using about the same amount of energy. Again, I want to pay credit to physical plant. Part of the group that really is doing so much behind the scenes that many of us never even learn about, but some just selected examples of the constant conservation efforts they're making are motion sensors, changing exit lights and other lighting on campus to more efficient sources. We're looking at changing the campus outdoor lighting to LED, again, in collaboration with the New Hampshire Electric Co-op, and lots of different ways to improve the efficiency of our heating and cooling units in the buildings, like those variable speed motors. When it comes to our heat, really, it's a huge part of our carbon footprint, and our annual production is charted here. You can see the natural gas year, the year we made the switch is identified. And basically, the variation you see is primarily due to variations in weather. And you can see that tracked with some of the heating degree days. It lines up very cleanly. On campus, we are always also trying to improve the thermal performance with windows, retrofitting those old buildings, again, the variable speed drives, changing out old equipment in some of the smaller houses like hot water heaters and so on, and changing the equipment at our central plant as well to be more efficient. Finally, in terms of campus water usage, you can see here our overall pattern over these 10 years. We've seen some increase in the last few years just because of adding facilities. And overall, we feel that we're using water more efficiently. So in some ways, it very much mirrors our electrical trends. And we try and think about water conservation through pretty standard approaches like updating fixtures and just considering alternatives to the traditional ways of doing things. So I'm able to share these kinds of things with you, from the large, like the solar array, all the way down to what it is that we use in the bathrooms to try and conserve water, to just give examples of some of the ways that we're trying to make these changes. And when I ask how we got here, it's because of that institutional priority and those commitments, the engagement of our students, the fact that our students are part of a larger supportive community, and the fact that we're willing to work together. I keep mentioning it, but it's been my pleasure to work with Physical Plant for a number of years. And so we can't ever forget that they're the ones who make campus work. And in my job, I know that they're the ones who truly are putting the boots on the ground, so to speak, to make these things happen. And why should it matter to you? We spend about $1,000 per undergraduate student every year on energy. So it's obviously a significant expense for the university. And at this point, I wanted to, after recognizing in particular that I may have thrown a lot of statistics at you, which is a big part of sustainability, I was wondering if I could ask Reed to reflect for a minute on how, well, you know, do students think about energy on campus in your experience?
Well, I don't know. No, I mean, yeah, kind of like, I don't know, like you were saying, you know, before it was your job, you know, it's not really something you think about, you know, we have the, I know, like outside of Langdon, I know we have the plant out there. So some students might notice that, but apart from that, you know, you don't really see it on a day-to-day basis. So no, I would say, no, it's not something that's at the forefront of most of the students' minds.
Yeah, it's a really give me 1 second, I have to respond. It is hard. And as you can imagine, there's the logical factor that when you don't see the bill, it's probably not much on many of our minds, right? And I just want to acknowledge that because it's, I think, part of why it goes unnoticed. Sorry, Reed, I can move the camera back to me. It's part of the reason it goes unnoticed, but also it needs to be recognized. It's part of the challenge in trying to get people to change behavior in our community. And so making that point that we all spend money on energy indirectly as students to this university, and that we're trying to think about it as one of the ways we need to keep tuition low, is one of the things that I hope resonates with people. But it's tricky. Our lives are complex. We're all busy. And a lot of times, if it's not part of our responsibility, it's hard to consider it. So I appreciate what you shared. As we look forward, I wanted to let you know our progress to date and where we're headed. And in the interest of allowing some questions, I'm going to have to speed up a little bit in order to be sure you can get some time with Reed. So overall, our carbon footprint is these kinds of numbers. And as I am regularly say with people, Carbon footprints are really a way to track progress more than they are meaningful as a number themselves. And so when we think about tracking progress, we can recognize first off that PSU compares very well to other universities like us when we use standardized measures. Our emissions per square foot and our emissions per student are both considerably lower than what you see in institutions in our region that are like us. Over time, I use selected years here to simplify the presentation, but over time, I think what we can be most proud of is our total emissions, carbon emissions per square foot. And you can see over the last 15 years the way that's decreased. However, you might note that the total amount of carbon emitted has not changed much. And this is one of the fundamental challenges to addressing emissions at the university. When we look at it overall, the decrease is not that significant. When we look at it per dollar we spend, per energy dollar we spend, or per square foot, we can clearly see that we are doing good work. So the challenge at a big institution like Plymouth State is that we continue to need and want new resources. And so every time we grow facilities or we improve facilities, we actually add to our carbon footprint. And so it's fabulous to see, in addition to the campus like Allwell North, where so many efforts were made to create a sustainable building, but we also have to note that at the same time, it's going to have an addition to our carbon footprint. So where does that leave us? In the end, we have to change our fundamental energy sources, how we heat and how the electricity we purchased is produced. Outside of the carbon footprint, I do want to note that we have lots of opportunities for people to be engaged. We have a sustainability research center on campus where people can come to get more information on any of these things. At Plymouth, as an educational institution, we have a wide variety of academic programs, just majors and minors, as well as classes in all kinds of disciplines that relate to sustainability. So there are lots of ways for students to get engaged through their education. In addition, we have travel and learning experiences, usually fostered through classes or through alternative spring breaks type engagements, excuse me. We have student organizations like Common Ground and MAPS, the Marketing Association of Plymouth State, that take an interest in sustainability and really contribute to our efforts. Our community organizations, we are extremely fortunate to have so many partners who work with our students and give them other places to explore these kinds of passions. And as I mentioned earlier, we're always trying to raise awareness with campus events to try and encourage people to think more holistically and think about wellness. And of course, to celebrate the natural environment we all enjoy by recreating and connecting with nature. I cannot conclude without recognizing the importance of student leadership. I mentioned along the way the Climate Reality Project, which was essential in our commitment to renewable energy by 2030. But we are also a tree campus, USA, which means that our trees are cataloged, inventoried for their contributions, ecologically speaking, and we have non-invasive species. In addition, we're a certified bee campus, meaning that our landscaping is safe for bees, as are our practices. And these are examples of initiatives that students brought forward that we supported as a faculty and campus community, and that resulted in these kinds of certifications. So knowing all that stuff, Reed, I was hoping that you could conclude today by just telling us a little bit about what you think students would like to see moving forward.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I think one thing that always comes up in my, a lot of environmental science or sustainability classes is we'd love to see composting and less food waste in the dining hall. That's one thing that, that's come up a lot. That's, always can improve there. So that would be definitely an aspiration. Maybe, it's been brought up to, maybe ban the sale of, plastic water bottles on campus, stuff like that. Sort of moving beyond those, just the energy initiatives. But those, yeah, there's some stuff like that, you know, just around the dining hall, food waste, composting. And, you know, there's every so often there's a movement to, you know, maybe see if we can get, you know, a community garden, you know, right on campus. We have one over by the dirt parking lot, but if there could be, you know, a garden that was tended to by students that, you know, maybe they could even serve those vegetables in the dining hall, something like that. Of course, that's always it's, you know, that would take a lot of work and effort. So that's always an issue there, but those are definitely things that get brought up a lot in classes. So, yeah.
That's one of the questions that I frankly wanted Reed to respond to very openly, but I can't agree more with his comments. As many of us know, people are fascinated by food issues, and that's reflected in our campus. And it also dawns on me, so to speak, that unlike the energy, the food is something that students deal with very directly. And so that's a piece that might actually be relevant there. In order to wrap it up, I do want to conclude by letting you know, before we take questions, where we're headed next very quickly, what our aspirations are and how we hope to achieve some of these lofty goals. So as I mentioned, we are fortunate to have a climate action plan at the university. And, oops, forgive me, I jumped out of the slides for a second. And as we look to the future, that action plan really does provide important guidance. It actually has a summary of how we hope to achieve carbon neutrality, as well as those specific tasks and goals that I mentioned we hope to meet along the way. But when I am asked about the university's next sustainable steps, and I want to be clear, this is from the perspective of the Office of Environmental Sustainability, not from the official public relations department. But what we think we're exploring is the energy used to produce our heat. We've viewed compressed natural gas as a transition fuel. We hope to be able to switch to renewable natural gas, and that's something we're currently exploring. As with all of our programs, it needs to work and it needs to be cost effective. We have previously looked at biofuels, biomass, and we look forward to exploring this one. We continue to evaluate the array and its performance on the PE Center, and based on that, may look at the possibility of future, particularly off-site solar electricity. As Reed mentioned, I'm happy to say that food waste and recycling are also on our agenda. We'll always be reaching out to our students and encouraging new programs. And hopefully this is the beginning of our continued opportunity to hear from students. So before I open it up for questions, I again want to acknowledge that I have the pleasure, Reed and I have the pleasure of speaking with you today, but that what we're able to share is really the results of our entire community. And we appreciate that passion. It's what keeps us going, as well as reinforcing the value of what we do. I also wanted to mention that I am frequently asked what are some of the things that I could do individually. So this is a nice infographic of individual choices and their impacts on climate change. So it can actually provide you with some data-driven ways to make decisions. And with that, I thank you very, very much for your time today and your attention. And Reed will have to leave a little bit early in order to do some other work at the university. So we'll be happy to take your questions. And I encourage you to ask Reed any questions in order to begin, since his time might be shorter. Oh, Kate, I see Kate Silvers would like a question. Let's see, whoops, see if I can get my
unmuted.
Right
can
so
you hear me?
Unmute.
I unmuted myself. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Great. Thank you.
This was fabulous. I'm so grateful I was on my lunch break and able to tune in. Great information. And I was unaware of a lot that you're doing, and I'm so impressed, first off. Reed, I know at one point you had a proposal for the dining services to go do like a meatless Monday, which would help a vegetarian, more plant-based diet offerings, which could I know meat is a huge emissions problem, but I thought that would be something good. But the other piece of, I did see lots of publicity about the trash pickup, which was great. And I just don't know how you more get the word out to all the students. I know there was a lot of participation in the trash pickup. Is there a lot of signage that's available for making sure that turn off this light as you leave, those kinds of things? I'm not on campus, so I don't know. Are those things implemented, good signage? And has there been any talk about maybe putting a windmill on campus? That's just a question I have. Thank you. This has been fabulous, and I hope that I can replay it. It looks like it might be being recorded. We can access it later.
Yes, it is being recorded, so we'll post it up for sure. I see you share Reed's curiosity, so I'll do my best to answer all those questions. And if I forget anything, please let me know. We try with signage on campus, and that's a big part of OES's efforts. But frankly, we have learned, and I think this is the industry standard, the more automated we make some of those systems, the better. So really the future is in light, room occupancy sensors and trying to do things like that. We certainly depend on people doing the right things. But as far as really an organizational approach, that's the most sure way to continue. Regarding the dining, how do we get students? I want to acknowledge I want to acknowledge that Common Ground has been a fabulous organization for many years, and they've performed particularly well in the pandemic, have a very small and committed active group. So it's really through their networking, their presence, that those kinds of things happen. Looking at the dining hall, the idea of meatless Mondays is something that a lot of universities do, and we've discussed. We do have a vegetarian station and other kinds of things available through dining services. So that's one of those that will be interesting to see how students want to move it forward. Because in the end, it's a great example of something that, as much as I like the idea, should really be up to the student body to determine. That's my sense. If I missed anything, please let me know.
I was curious about a windmill. Has anybody done?
So we have had brief discussions about a small, more of a demonstration windmill down on the Holderness campus, which is right by the river and gets pretty considerable wind. We have never had the sense that something of a large enough scale to really be impactful is possible, given the space we have on campus and things like that.
And one last thing, and I'll go. I do know Reed is a tour guide. And Reed, do you tell prospective families how good PSU is with sustainability and mention that in your tour?
Yeah, well, I always try to make a point of it as I'm pointing out the athletics Holderness side of campus. I always say, oh yeah, we have the new solar array that fuels 90% of the PE center. And then I talk about the geothermal and biomass, which was really cool. Like Brian shared a story once where there was somebody walking down there and said, oh, wow, how cool is this? You guys have all three different types of renewable energy. And so, I always try to make a point of that and then mention all the student clubs as well that are active. So yeah, I always make a point of that on the tours.
Yeah. Thanks, Reed. Appreciate it. There are some questions in the chat, so I can look at some of those. I'll just go down the list. There's two questions. The first is, has there been any discussion of turning our parking lots into energy producing areas? Second, are you hoping the infrastructure bill might impact PSU? Okay. So covered parking areas are very attractive, but tend to be very expensive. In addition, we have a lot of our parking in the floodplain, which is not a place where that kind of construction is possible or necessarily wise. So we have thought about the idea, but have not pursued it too much in depth because of those reasons. I am absolutely hoping that the national initiatives on renewable energy can affect us here at Plymouth State. I hope they create opportunities for, frankly, public higher education across the nation as an important leader in this field, and as a field, an area, in my opinion, that needs more support. So trust me, I'm keeping a close eye on that. I do try and keep an eye on those things. For instance, just as one example, people may remember that Jeff Bezos announced some $10 million fund to try and address some climate change issues. And that fund has never accepted any applications. But so we look far and wide to try and find the support. And I am hopeful that the administrative change may bring us some opportunities. Yep, and some other folks. Thank you. Just skimming down the questions. One comment: as a PSU student, I agree with Reed's suggestions. I can say myself and my peers are aware of sustainability and other issues on campus. We're unsure of how to go about fixing it. Well, I am absolutely glad I took the time to note that comment. That's a big part of why I and the director of OES and some of the other faculty members who are really interested in these things are here. So I can volunteer, reach out to me anytime. And that is truly one of the things I enjoy, is helping students figure out how to achieve change. As I've mentioned, I believe one of the most important things we do as educators is prepare future citizens, not just future workers. And those are the kinds of things that give those experiences that can empower somebody for a lifetime. So please do reach out. Cool. Some other questions. Anybody have questions?
Yes, I have a question, or whether there should be a stronger statement tying climate change and sustainability together, and as an incentive to work on the sustainability. For example, in New Hampshire, it's ski country, and I'm sure most of the students, as most of the students ski, over the years, there's been quite a decline in snowfalls. Years ago, when I was a kid, we'd always have 3-4 feet of snow, a ton of snow, and now it's getting less and less every year. And you look at the Alps in Europe, a lot of the slopes are closing down because they just don't get the snowfall anymore. So if in fact all the sustainability and all the work we're doing is actually maybe slow down climate change and global warming, it would be incentive for the provide incentive for the skiers, like, okay, let's get going here. It's save the skiing industry.
Reed, I'm going to put you on. Can you please speak to all the articles I had you read last semester about the ski industry? No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that to you. But I will let you know, first off, that I do want to be clear that the university has absolutely, as part of these commitments, recognized that climate change is real and human caused and is a critical social issue and environmental issue. So from institutional perspectives, that is there. As we as a university have a strong sense of place, I would like to say. We value the region, and we know many of our students do. So your comments about the ski industry are just right on the money. We talk about that quite a bit. I can tell you, and I'm smiling because I don't want to put Reed on the spot, but I can tell you that, like, for example, the class reading I had together, we read articles specifically on the impacts of climate change on snowmaking at Loon and their use of water. We looked at a forecast for the state of New Hampshire and its ski areas, and we talked a lot about how the industry is striving to become more resilient by diversifying their activities, more of those zip lines, more fat tire biking, and the implication of what that means long term. It's probably going to be harder to have ski areas make ends meet. So we expect a future, just speculating here, but I think it's likely we'll see large resorts be successful and small resorts continue to go out of business. So your comments about connecting it to place are really well taken. And although I prodded him a couple of times, so I do want to give Reed an opportunity to share any of your thoughts.
No, yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I mean, definitely skiing, huge part of the campus culture here. So many skiers. So you would think, that would, that would be some incentive. And I know we've had, it was cool last year. We had somebody from Protect Our Winters come down to Biedermann's to give a presentation right here in Plymouth. So that's really cool. And I think, that's another reason on top of all the other reasons why, climate change and sustainability is so important, and why the students recognize it here through our active clubs. And I think that's why another reason to take it so important.
Yes. One of the ways that I like to think about it, Reed is gonna well, I don't know if he'll smile, he may groan because he's heard this so many times, but I am of the belief that students have a lot of choices in where they go to school. And I would not assert that every student at Plymouth is an outdoor adventurer and a big hiker or skier or anything like that. But I do believe that most students who choose to attend Plymouth and be part of our community value that rural, high quality natural environment. It might be for the everyday experience, it might be for recreation, but there's a connection there. And so taking some of these place-based values that we're talking about, it really fits well with, I believe, who we're trying to attract and who we attract already in terms of our campus experience. Does anyone else have questions we can address? Reed has to give a tour to prospective family here at Plymouth, so I'm sure now I probably loaded him up with too many things to say.
Yeah, sorry.
Peter, go ahead. What can we try and answer for you?
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, my ears picked up right away when you said that we're better than comparative schools, and I'll go over the PowerPoint and have a debrief with Reed or you, but basically, as much as we can shine up these attributes, it's so helpful to us. There was a mention of windmills. From my knowledge, the things that will save the most juice will be retrofitting older buildings and using those occupancy sensors so that you're not heating rooms that are not occupied and not cooling rooms that are not occupied. I mean, that's a different kind of discussion. But in terms of the windmill concept, people driving by at I-93, they see these wind turbines over the campus and they think that's us, and that's not a bad thing. That's a good association, and we can play up on that. So again, good work. This is really important for our image, for all kinds of efforts. And, again, if we can shine up our attributes and our status among other schools to position ourselves as a school that should be considered when people are thinking about conservation and environmental topics, all to the better. So thank you very much.
I can't overstate how much I appreciate that. And again, it's a team effort, so I'm just one of the people involved. But I'm in the field. I truly believe we have a lot to be proud of. As someone who's so passionate about these issues, it's never fast enough for me because that's part of my job and I like what I do. But I cannot overstate that over my time at Plymouth, I really feel that we are making a good effort within what we can realistically do responsibly. Again, to me, it's the issue, so everything should move faster. But thank goodness I don't run the world. So I appreciate what you shared, Peter, and I really do. Also, obviously, I'm happy to support any efforts, and I truly do think it's a good thing for PSU to talk about.
Thank you.
Gary.
Brian, maybe can I jump in?
Please.
Hi, Gary McCool for everyone. I know people have to leave. It's a great presentation. Brian has done just super job for years and years, and a lot of fond memories back on Earth Day. As he and I know, I was a faculty advisor to Common Ground for a mere 35 years. And on this date, for part of those years, we probably would have had an outdoor environmental conference or environmental fair. What I was going to suggest is a way of spreading the word. I know a lot of people have had to leave, but they know that this is recorded. If you could, each person here, especially faculty that might be able to share this with other people in their discipline, could just pick one or two other people and point them in the direction of this recording. It'll probably be put out again. I don't know, Peter, that might be something that you're doing, but or Brian, but if you send out the link as a campus communication, maybe, so
Yep.
people will know where it is, or it'll be on your OES website.
I was going to send it out as an all faculty link after
Great.
this, and I'll
Great.
mail it directly to Peter and Reed, so they'll have it too.
And the only other quick thing was I stuck a note in the chat, but if you haven't seen it, tonight, I think starting at 6:30 for new people and at 7 for everybody else, the Plymouth Area Renewable Energy Initiative's annual meeting online is there. So if you just do plymouthenergy.org, you would get it. And apparently they've got a series of events over about 10 days. So it might link you to other things that are happening in the region if you're not familiar with them. So check those out if you're interested.
And
but thanks, Brian, and thanks, Reed. I know he had to go.
And I'll just conclude by saying, Gary, I appreciate everything you shared, and that the Plymouth Area Renewable Energy Initiative is a great example of one of the partners that Plymouth State has had. Well, I hope we've both benefited from the partnership, but they have helped us with projects. They have hosted student interns and have always been willing to talk to students while they do research. So I just really appreciate you bringing that up, and really want to take the opportunity to thank them in particular for being such a great partner. Well, I think it's about 2, so I think it's appropriate time to wrap it up. As I shared, we'll put this recording out. I'll send it to Peter and PR. We'll have it available. I will have it available, and I'll send it out to other faculty as well. Really thank you for taking the time to listen in today. And again, if you have other questions about sustainability at Plymouth, just reach out and I'll be more than happy to speak with you. Enjoy the rest of your day.